Hi, my name is Darryl Togashi. I wear several hats. I do work full-time at Purdue Global University as a cybersecurity instructor. And I'm also the vice president for InfraGard and chairperson for the executive advisory board for the AUCSSCD, amongst other things. I'm director for CCDC for the state competition for Indiana. So I get involved with a lot of different things with cybersecurity and education and cyber awareness and different things like that. And of course, no one's heard of AI and or those initials, right? And actually, I'm just going to go on. Oh, give me one moment to log in. Okay, we'll let that come up a little bit. But I thought it'd be interesting to have a talk on ethics and trustworthiness of AI. I mean, one of the big topics, you know, everybody's using AI, and a few years back when ChatGPT actually kicked into public use, I mean, it just exploded, right? Everybody was using it. But it's like any new tool. Are we using it, you know, ethically, or, you know, what are the implications of using some of these new tools, and, you know, what's it doing in the background, you know? And there's a lot of questions still to be had, right, with a lot of this stuff, because there's so many different ways you can use AI tools and large memory learning models, you know, and different things like that. So, and I will get on track in here in a second. One moment. So what we're looking at is there's different things like topics that, let me see if it's better when you have visuals, but, okay. Do the old school. I was talking to a couple of gentlemen about this, and, you know, we were talking about, you know, I wasn't even born then, you know, okay, I understand, you know. So, but we're talking about biases, we're talking about privacy, data privacy. When is your data being used? I think what I would like to come as a summary on a lot of this stuff that we are talking about is the fact that a lot of the assessments and a lot of the risk stuff that we're doing is anything with any new tool, whether it's AI or it's anything else. You know, you're going to have to be able to. Okay. Okay. One moment. I think. Where'd it go?
Technology, you know.
I know.
Maybe you need to download some more RAM.
Download some more RAM. Good one. Actually, I just bought myself a new desktop at home. And it had this machine is my newer one. It's an i7, but I have an i3, which is even older. And I use that as my baseline for, if I can run it on that machine, my students can run it, you know. So I keep that around. But I got tired of waiting around, you know. And now that I got the new machine, I get spoiled because it comes up quite quicker, you know, and it does a lot of different things. And so, but anyways, so see if I can get on board.
There you go.
There we go. Okay, blah, blah, blah. This is all some of the stuff that I'm involved in on that, so I just thought I'd do a quick there. I'm also part of the Executive Cyber Council, InfraGard, I said, Cyber CCDC, so I said most of these. I'm also part of the statewide TSAP committee to talk about articulation between 2-year degrees to 4-year degrees in terms of trying to get some kind of agreement as to what stuff we're doing on there. To add to that, I'm on a national CAE committee that we're talking about, and anybody be interested in hearing what industry has to say, or some of you guys have to say about this, is we're talking about more looking at competencies and skills. Not that I took Network 101 and I do pen testing class and this kind of stuff, and right now we're mapping our outcomes to that. Sorry, I'm kind of off target, but that's my little spiel on that. But we are looking more towards trying to match skills, job requirements, because a lot of times you look at a job requirement and they would like, but they also have the degrees. And it's getting to be such a gray area with degrees and certifications, blah, blah, blah. I need 10 years of experience on a subject that's only been around for 3, and all this kind of stuff, So, and so there's a lot of talk going around as to, how can we, we're talking about cybersecurity, bridging the gap and trying to figure out what we can do to do that. Sorry, I went off on the bandwagon. So, blah, blah, blah. So I guess most of you know, talking about what AI is, it's more, I think, I guess I'm from the old school. I look at it as, I was doing a lot of programming logic, and I'm trying to follow, and I had a little bit more control over it when I'm doing a regular programming style of things on this. Whereas this one, where I worked on graduate level a little bit on neural networks and genetic algorithms, and we talked about learning subjects and being able to do that. But back then, I laugh, and for those of you who have kids, I look at it this way, that these learning models and these AI systems are like my kids. I can feed them all the good information that, and I can teach them all the morals and all the right stuff, but they still go out and do stupid things, right? The results aren't quite what I'm expecting, or their interpretation of what I told them what to do comes back, and this is like, that's not even close, So I laugh when I look at AI, and then I do ChatGPT and I do a prompt and it comes back with something. I said, yeah, that sounds like my kid, wrong, try again, But the problem with a lot of this stuff with the AI and stuff like that is that those people a lot of people are using that at the, this is open to the whole world. It's not open to just a few experts or educated people. It's open to the whole world. So you got a lot of people from a lot of experience to a little bit of experience in the subject matter that they're trying to get the ChatGPT to give them back. They think it's an all encompassing kind of thing, And that's part of the problem that we have with that. And that's a part of the problem when we are trying to incorporate that in education is, like we were thinking, well, you could do a chat bot, kind of give you a little bit of an assistance. So, how do I get into this lab? And, you prompt, and they give you an answer back. The problem that we found in when we were experimenting with that is that it comes back with some inventive answers. And the problem with ChatGPT is that it's very articulate, So it sounds like it's, if you don't know anything about it, well, that sounds reasonable, okay. So that's part of the challenges that we have in things like that. We're talking about biases, making decisions, depending on the training model that's being used, that kind of stuff. It may come back with different things, or like we'll see later on, I have some examples from Hugging Face. They have the large learning models that are specific to different things like audio or or video or, conversational things and that. So if you're using that outside of the genre that it was trained for, I'm not sure exactly what kind of output you're going to get for that. So, and then, they have the supervised model where, I'm like Bing and chat and that they say, is this correct or you like that, thumbs up or down? Well, if I wanted to gear it one way and I say, oh yeah, that's right, all Oriental people are bad, cool, I mean, it can be put in and it's part of the training model or the large memory model. So the next person that goes in, it could show a little skewness in terms of their interpretation or what it comes out with. And that's a lot of things that we have problems with as well. Hallucinations. Now, okay, I grew up in the 60s, so it's not quite the same. It's not quite the same. Sorry.
Was it music or we have the music?
I hold the fit. But like we were saying earlier, it comes back with some stuff that we're not really too sure exactly, and then how it came back with. Because a lot of times I'll see, like even the more modern pieces of the puzzle with the chatbots, that they have some references or cited stuff, and when I go and check on them, sometimes they are relevant. Sometimes I'm not even sure where they got the information from, and so. That's another problem that we have with that. Data privacy. Kind of like what I was saying before, if you're using open-ended models like ChatGPT and that, a lot of times if you put in your prompt or like you say, I'm writing or I have an intellectual property and I dump that paper in because I want it to be formatted better, that intellectual property may end up in a public domain area. And then all of a sudden it's accessible to other people. So we have a lot of things with that in regards to how are people in the company or how are you using things like that? Because there's a lot of, I noticed there's a lot of, for lack of a better term, AI applications that talk about research and being able to format things and all that kind of stuff. And if you're working on a high-end proprietary research in that, I'm not sure you want to go out in the public and have your stuff out there reformatting and that. You go to the old school, and have somebody who, in your English department or somebody like that to take a look at it. So. Then ethical implications, and we'll talk about this in a little bit. That's all personal, right? I mean, is this the right way or is this the wrong way? We have all our ways of thinking, and we've been taught as to, what are right and wrong. And then are we going to sway things, How many have been in meetings, and how many have all the same opinion on things, and is that, if you're in a model like this, is that going to get swayed one way or another because of the way people are doing things on that? And then is that ethical? And then who's actually validating that? Is this a valid answer, or is this not a valid answer or an ethical answer? Or does this violate some things that it shouldn't even be coming back with? All right. Bias training, model choices, underlying social biases. I kind of, sometimes I talk ahead of things. So, but that's what I'm talking about there, in terms of being able to understand some of those things. I think that's my concern on a lot of the stuff that I see out there. I mean, we talk about deep fake, we talk about misused information that's out there in like YouTube and Twitter and all that kind of stuff, and now we got this, and how many times have we seen, where you can say, well, I can generate an image that looks like, maybe so-and-so, some actor, and they're saying something different, or how many different things we see with Trump, they have him saying something, or, they're actually making fun of him, but if you are a person that's unaware of that and you're watching that particular video or deep fake is quote unquote, hate to kind of coin that phrase, but then you know, is that true? You know, because they emulate now. They talk about, you know, being able to do videos, right? To do your YouTube videos and Twitter videos, and then they have some kind of way you can have your avatar look like you and then animate you and sound like you and all this kind of stuff. Well, right now it's kind of in its infancy, but what happens when they kind of make that better and all of a sudden, you know, you're looking at it. There's a couple of them that I saw some YouTube videos and they were explaining this process, and I didn't know the person, and I mean, for all I know, it could have been them talking, you know. So it's very difficult. Fairness and avoiding biases. Whew. We have trouble with that in a normal environment, you know, let alone in having an AI system kind of perpetuate that. But we have to be aware of that. I mean, we have to be understanding that the possibility that could be pushed into that or is coming into things can be very, very possible. Some ways to mitigate, and these, I'm speculation, you know, because mitigation, as we all know, in terms of any kind of things that we have for our companies is really can be unique to our own companies and that kind of stuff. But some of the things in general, I kind of summarize them in the bold, but is kind of an ownership, taking ownership of some of the data and the responses coming back and that kind of stuff. Local development area. Not everybody has that. I mean, I think we have that problem with cybersecurity, right? Where we have big companies, they have all the resources, they have all the, you know, environments that they can kind of do their testing on and do all that kind of stuff, but the small mom and pop shops have trouble with that. So how do we deal with that, you know, in regards to being able to, you know, I'm gonna pull down a open source LLM and I'm going to use that because that has I think all the stuff I have, and my initial test looked okay, but how do we know that it indeed is true or not, kind of stuff. Learning, understanding what the concepts are with your training model that you're going to use. What kind of data are you going to use in that? How much of your data are you going to use, you know, to do the training? And you know, what's the outcome of your training that you're doing with that? Which leads into the next two is more of having a good representation of your data, more of a diverse. Because I'm going to have a bias if I only look at, I can't think of an example, I'm drawing a blank, but a small representation of the data and then or a scenario or an instance that you're looking at. So let's say I'm only looking at Windows machines and I want to check out vulnerabilities, you know, use an L&M for vulnerabilities. And I only have Windows machine stuff in the training environment, then I'm going to totally miss Mac, I'm going to totally miss Linux, and, you know, there's a whole another area that's doing on that. And then again, stakeholders, getting humans involved. There's got to be, I think there's got to be some way to be able to have some kind of a hybrid of checks and balances and that kind of stuff in regards to getting people to be involved with some of that stuff, because, and I'll show you an example. Yeah. Another part is transparency of the AI decision-making process, what kind of algorithms they're using. That's a tricky subject, and I'm going to be mentioning that a little bit later on, as to, you know, how much of, if I'm developed a product as AI or developed a product in general, how much of that internal workings do I really want to reveal? You know, how much of it is intellectual property that I'm going to be revealing to the the public or to the individuals, whoever I'm dealing with, you know, and then how much is too much and how much is not enough in terms of transparency, you know, because if I'm on the user side, right, I want to know everything. I want to, well, how did you make that decision? How did you come up with these things and that kind of stuff? But if I'm on the development side or the company side, I might say, you know, that's our little secret sauce, you know, that we developed, you know, and it's unique or something like that. So takes further on discussion. But when it comes to when you are making decisions, it's just like report writing. When you're making decisions off of that report or you're making decisions off the output of an AI thing that affects lives, you better have checks and balances in that to make sure that indeed that's correct. Because I've seen a lot of things that they're using AI for medical purposes, you know, and that kind of scares me because it's kind of like, you know, they said, oh, we'd do an analysis on you whether you're sick or not, you know. It's kind of like me reading the book of all these diseases and say, man, I got that, I got and I got that symptom, you know. You know, and it's like, I don't think so. but you know, I think it's something that we have to, I mean, it's good that we're experimenting with, but I think I've heard somebody in another video that I was listening to that, you know, it's good, we like trying it out, we shouldn't not try it, but we're not sure if it's ready for prime time or in production yet, you know. So we're gonna have to make that call and make a decision on that. And here is, okay, old school is trust but verify. New school is verify then trust. I was told, I was corrected the other day, which is fine. But I look at it like this, it's like with this dog example I was looking at is that you wouldn't go up to any dog and just put your hand out and reach down to them and try to shake their paw or anything like that. You probably do a scan and an analysis, a little bit of investigation before you go down there, see how they're reacting to you, see, you know, or seeing how they react to other people, which is like AI, right? You can run the AI and you can just experiment with it and see, you know, on non-volatile stuff and see, you know, okay, it seems to be okay and that kind of stuff, but you still need to verify. And that goes back to my old school, Google. Remember when Google first came out? Well, okay. I retract the question. I remember when Google first came out, and then everybody was yeeping and yelling that, students can't use Google, you can't use Google, you have to read out of the book and memorize this and regurgitate what you memorize and all this kind of stuff. But in this, it reminds me of that. I put in something like a prompt, and it comes back with me. And now we kind of have a general methodology of kind of looking at the stuff that comes back and say, oh yeah, that link looks legit, this link looks legit. And we even have, what is those little green check marks and that on the sites that even check some of these sites as a valid site. So we got little tools and things that kind of help us along the way to kind of judge, you know, as to whether, you know, that's something that I can use or it's valid to use. Plus, as a student, I know how to cite that, right? I can go to the link, I know my APA citing and all this kind of stuff. AI is still, you know, a Wild West yet. I'm not really too sure whether they can cite it or not. We've had conversations with that at Purdue Global, and one of them was just talking about just even acknowledging the fact that you used AI or which AI application that you use for that is a start. We need to do that in the beginning and then try to understand how they're going to cite the information that comes back to it. Because depending on what application they use, it doesn't always tell you what's citing or what place it got it from. It has just the verbiage, and you're kind of looking at, well, that sounds reasonable, you know? And so we've had conversations about that. We haven't had quite a consensus yet. I think that's still going to be a long conversation, just like we did with Google, right? It's going to be a conversation as to how are we going to trust is what's coming back from Google and that. And as its search engine kind of improved and all that kind of stuff, we kind of, you know, started to trust it a little bit more. You know, along with Bing and some of these other search engines. When Bing came out and, you know, and that kind of stuff, we didn't question as much, you know. But I still question it as much because there's a lot of ChatGPT lookalikes, yeah, or generate, you know. And I don't know, I still don't know. I'm a little leery, you know. I don't know the company, you know, and I don't know what they're doing with it, you know. And for the, okay, I'll admit this is kind of bad. First time in my life I started reading the whole privacy thing, you know, seeing what they say in that, which I'm going to show in a second here, I think. I don't remember which one. Oh, not yet. But I started reading the privacy statements and seeing if they include some stuff that's talking about AI use and what they're doing, like Zoom, well, Claude 2 is sponsored by Meta, who has this great record of keeping privacy, right? You know, so you look at that and saying, okay, now we have parent companies that don't have a good record on things, and you're trying to figure out exactly, you're kind of trying to figure out, okay, where's the relationship here? Are they going to be, you know, doing the Cambridge Analytics on me, on my chat, you know, Claude 2 stuff that I'm putting out there, you know? And that's why the public stuff, I usually use stuff that are very generic, you know, look up this or do something like that. So there's I don't know how new this is, I should have looked it up, but there's a thing called XAI, which is explainable AI. It's a kind of a movement to talk about being as kind of back in terms of the transparency kind of concept, but where you can kind of explain things as to how, or at a certain level of things, to be able to explain how things are getting generated or what they're looking at in terms of a human output. Because obviously, not all of us are stat experts and we're not mathematicians. So, you know, we need something that kind of makes sense to us from a logical sense, and to see, you know, what exactly is. And so I just wanted to bring that up because it was something that I came across and I thought was interesting, that they are actually looking at stuff like this. Let's see. Trustworthy. Okay. Yeah. Protection of proprietary algorithms. There's some issues here I was talking about. You know, sometimes, you know, you have some kind of a secret sauce that you built, and you don't want that exposed. Or like in this case, we were talking about, it could be another threat surface, right? It could be another thing where, okay, I know how your algorithms work or which algorithms you're using. So now I can reverse engineer it and use AI to take a look at that and seeing if I can find a 0 day in that kind of stuff. And the difficulty in designing transparent algorithms, it's a little harder to design. Ethical risk of openness. If they're using it in the wrong context or anything like that, you know, there's a whole bunch of different things that could happen with that. Yeah. And some of this stuff, if you can see, it's kind of the same thing that you would do with any new application, in that is recognize the costs and risks associated with transparency, or with being able to do any process that you're doing in a company. That it's nothing, okay, I'm not going to say it, I will say it. It's nothing really new, but it's a process that you should incorporate into your regular stuff. So like in my continuity plan, or my business continuity or disaster recovery plan, I may want to add stuff. Like we were talking about that at Purdue Global, as to, you know, IT was talking about how do we handle the AI stuff, and then we were talking about how we can add special procedures or procedures that are specific to AI tools that we are sanctioning to be used in our environment. We have a little bit of different environment since we're totally remote. that we have less of an issue. So like at AU, they have more of the concrete, it's on their network. So somebody on their network could be using that. So that's a little bit of a different issue that you might run into. But it would be again policies and procedures. Working at the weakest link, right? The humans, trying to get those people to understand the implications of using some of these applications and which ones that people have looked at enough to say, okay, this is reasonable, but you can only use it in this context, and kind of be very specific about different things. And then being able to have them understand it to a point where I don't have to be an expert, I don't have to be able to train anything, but I do need to understand the use of it, any application. I want to be intelligent enough to understand the implications of me using the application. SIMs, I'm running or I'm building a website, I got security risks I could be building into that because I'm using a vulnerability in JavaScript coding or something to that effect. I mean, all these different kind of things that that's, I guess I'm thinking at a technical side, but even using some of that stuff, like sometimes, you get blocked out of using Facebook at work, those kind of policies and procedures we've been implementing all the time, but we need to add to that. Yeah. You need to be transparent. Ethics is to be aligned with human values and rights. Is that a big statement? I mean, everybody, I am not going to preach here, but we have, everybody has their own kind of values and, and rights that they feel that, I mean, how often do we argue about our right to speech and, right to bear arms and, all these different kind of things along the way, and then that's could be a problem with the bias, right? Because I'm going to say that, oh yeah, you can't have guns and, you can only speak certain things or you can only say certain things and that kind of stuff. And they're going to say, whoa, we're going to have to talk about this because that's not right. Or, I'm going to say, well, you can talk about, the responses to kill somebody, and they say, oh, wait, you got, those are maybe not so obvious, but those are obvious things that you don't want to be coming back on your application. But nevertheless, those are things that you need to look into and investigate to make sure that indeed that it is falling within your realm of what you feel are within the values and rights that you want to make sure that it is implementing out to you. Here's some ethics examples. I found a couple of them. I'm not sure. Okay, ChatGPT. We all know that one, and probably you've heard this one. This is talking about is coding, using ChatGPT to win coding contests and writing essays and that. We're talking about things like that. With that is one example. And another one is Lensa is an artificial generation of cartoon photos and that, and it was accessing photos sourced from the internet without consent. So they had copyrighted photos that they weren't having consent with. So that's an issue, right? You'd think, oh well. When we're doing OSINT, right, oh, well, it's available on the network, so, internet, so we should be able to do that. Not necessarily, So those are a couple of examples of that in regards to some ethical things that you have to be concerned with. And I think back with the verify then trust is that when it comes back, like Google, when it comes back with things, that you need to kind of verify that. Okay, I'll tell you a real story with my father and I. Back in the day when calculators first came out, my father used to say, he's a chemical engineer, so he was real mathematical and all this stuff. He says, well, you need to look at the answers that the calculator is coming back with and verify it. Do your gut feeling with it and see. If you do 2 + 2 and it says 6, You think in your mind, is that correct? Don't just accept it as the answer in that. And that's the philosophy I've always taken, and that's, I think, the philosophy that keeps us safe too, is when we're using these new applications, whether it's AI or anything else, is that to kind of look at it and kind of visually verify the fact that does this sound right or not, and if it doesn't, to do deeper investigation as to that. Okay, I'm going to tell you a side story. I did get in trouble in grade school. My teacher was teaching me math, and they asked me what 2 + 2 was, and I said, I don't know. So they thought I was dumb. But the day before, my father was teaching me math, and he says, well, 2 ounces and 2 quarts is how much? And he was teaching me how to convert, and then it wasn't necessarily 4 by given, right? So I had that in my mind. I was thinking, oh, well, you're not giving me enough information. I don't know what the answer is. And boy, did I. I didn't blame my father. I kept him under wraps, but I always remember that story. But I thought, that makes a lot of sense. So if the calculator came back with 2 + 2 = 6, then it must know that I want 2 quarts of 2 pints. But who knows, right? But there are calculators, right? You can put in right, and be able to, and then it'll convert them and then translate it into the correct amount. But I'm sorry, I just kind of diverted. But I always remembered that, and it's kind of like some of these little things that you look at that you kind of, try to figure out, exactly, what context are you looking at in, like we were saying earlier, if you're using the LLM in the wrong context, it may be coming out with some really weird stuff or different stuff that you should be able to catch, at least visually and kind of at least gut-wise, say, hey, I better take a deeper look at that. Ethical issues could be surveillance, privacy. It could be, we talked about this in general in app development when we're talking, I'm on a VR, XR app development. We were talking about the visual aspects of things that we capture in the experience. Like if it's an AR, what are they seeing behind me? Like those little photos, a lot of times you take a picture and there's something behind you that can reveal a lot of stuff that you don't want revealed. And so we had to talk about a lot of that stuff, and the same with AI in terms of what information are we capturing, how are we using that data. It all comes back to that, right? The basic stuff. How are we using the data? Ooh, okay, making sure I'm on the time. But how are we using the data and that kind of stuff and that. Bias and discrimination, transparency, explainability, accountability and responsibility, safety and security. All these kind of things is different pieces of the puzzle where I'm thinking that, we have to start looking a little bit careful in. And like Google in the search, we kind of have to develop our little methodologies depending on the applications that we're allowing to use as how we do these things, because I'm not saying how you do any of this stuff, because some of this stuff is unknown with some of these applications. I mean, it's still a black hole. I don't know what they do, and I don't know how safe it is. And these are mitigations, different kind of things. But this is if you have control over a lot of the environment that you're using this stuff in. So if I'm using it on a portal like ChatGPT or anything like that, I'm not sure I have any control over some of this stuff in that. So I kind of go on through this a little quick. Data privacy challenges, a lot of challenges. Where is it stored? How is it being used? Data in transit, does this all sound familiar? Because this is the same stuff that you would do in a regular app, right? If I was doing a web app or a cloud, right? Cloud, right, there we go, clouds. Is that all? We have to take a look at some of that stuff. Regulatory frameworks, GDPR, CCPA. There is some nice frameworks that talk about that. The government, CISA, and that, they all talk about that. They have an AI initiative and talking about frameworks and different kind of policies and procedures that maybe help you kind of guide in terms of what you can try to put in place, especially larger organizations. and then best practices. Now, here's a Zoom thing that I just found. August 11th, 2023. It says Zoom does not use your blah, blah, blah to train Zoom or third-party artificial intelligence models. You know? And then down here, at the very bottom of the terms of use, it says this was updated, section 10, which I was in section 10 there. It says Zoom does not use audio, video, chat, customer content to train its artificial intelligence model. So I asked these questions. Does this imply that that they've been using it before this statement came out? Do they still have the data? You know, is this still in the LLM? Did they remove it?
The previous one said third-party artificial intelligence, and then the one you just showed doesn't.
Oh, this one?
So that one says third-party artificial intelligence models.
Right. Oh, yes.
The next one doesn't mention third-party.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah. So that's a good point. Good point. Thank you. So even though they put this out there, it kind of leads you to wonder, okay, you know, I've been using Zoom for a while. I'm sure a lot of you have. You know, nothing really major that I'm probably concerned with, but I mean, if I was, you know, I mean, they're talking about how secure they are, you know, how much of a debacle it was during COVID, right? They had all those, that was a whole nother thing. But you know, they're putting this stuff out there, and just recently they're putting it out there, you know, it's kind of like you're kind of wondering, you know, that's why I was saying I was reading through all this privacy, it's kind of like shocked just to find some of this information that's out there. But,
Like Teams.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So some of this stuff, I was looking through this and I was kind of reevaluating the slide, but some of it is policies and procedures and assessments that you can make yourself, but some of it, I'm not sure exactly how you could implement some of that stuff with different, bless you, So, you know, I was kind of looking through, but some of this stuff was recommended on some of this, and but I'm looking at, a lot of times you have to look at the use case that you're doing with it. What kind of data are you trying to interface with that, and what are you trying to do with that? Are you using it locally? Are you using it on a cloud? You know, what are their data privacy rights? You know, what kind of things are there? We were doing a VPAT on a company that we were wanting to do work with. We mean Purdue Global, and talking about, you know, their data, and they're a cloud environment, and they were located in Canada, you know, and all their data is residing in Canada, you know, and they talked about being encryption, you know, on the fly, on the move, and all this kind of stuff. But, you know, those kind of things, you know, might not be a big issue, but those kind of things, you have to start asking the questions to these companies as to what are they doing with it, where are they residing at, you know, how are they protecting this, how are they, you know, I think I've seen recently some are saying that you have kind of your own LLM and your private LLM and that kind of stuff, but I kind of relate that to the cloud and saying, you know, I'm on my own private rack, right? You know, or I'm on my own server. I'm not on a shared, you know, co-hosting or anything like that. So, you know, I kind of have to trust them to say that, oh, indeed, that is true. You know, as the architecture and the tools mature, I think, you know, like cloud, we're a little better at that than when we first started out. But like with AI, I think it's still really new, so I'm not even sure how that works. Yes?
Just a random question that just popped in my head.
Sure.
Because I'm not familiar with this. So that example, you said the organization was based in Canada, so the
Yes.
data resides there.
Oh.
How does it work when it comes to data protection if different countries, right, like are working together, a company, right? One company's based here in the U.S., one's there, with data rights, right? Or like, is it because the data resides in Canada, you have to kind of follow the I guess the question I'm trying to ask is like, if they have different perceptions of how that data needs to be protected or utilized,
Yes.
whose do they have to follow? Because if the U.S. has different, or that company's got different policies,
Yes.
procedures on how they can
The-
work with that kind of data versus where the data actually lives or is being utilized from, like who takes precedence? Is that something that's even?
I'm going to tell you I don't know, but that is an excellent question, because a lot of times I notice that international or companies that are outside of the United States, they talk about doing GDPR, because obviously they might be doing work with them. So you kind of look at it from that perspective, but I'm not a compliance or anything like that. I would look into it. Yes, sir.
To his point, we work with law firms. I'm not a lawyer. Are there lawyers in the room? Okay, I'll be respectful then. But there are cybersecurity lawyers for a reason, and I know when we deal with potential clients or existing clients in the United States, as I understand it currently, every state has different data breach response and privacy laws, so it may be where the data is lost, if it's lost or stolen, as to what jurisdiction it may be.
There's
There are
also
good cybersecurity lawyers for a reason.
Yes.
So,
Yes, sir.
I'm not a lawyer, but it's a pretty good answer. You're going to have to follow both. I mean, if you've got data that traverses between here and Canada, you're going to have to follow the laws of here, you're going to have to follow the laws of Canada. And if you're an international company that does business all over the world, you better have legal representation all over the world, because you're going to follow the laws of those different jurisdictions.
That's a perfect example what we just witnessed with this very popular app, TikTok, that it even went to the Congress to say, where are your servers located? No, US and US personnel is still. There is some concerns about where my TikTok data, my face, my information goes. Maybe it goes to a different government, a different country that have a different government. I don't know, but that is exactly the point.
Where
We
do they-
don't know where that information goes.
Where do they back it up?
And the country that hold that, can they use against me, against the government? I don't know. Perfect example.
I was just
Very
going to
good.
say, if you're a U.S. company and you hold on to data that would be considered PII, PHI, PCI, you're subject to federal laws regarding that if you're located in the United States.
Very good.
Good point.
Excellent. Good point.
But if you have Canadian clients, for example, you are also subject to Canadian law.
Correct, yes, yeah,
Yes.
if you're storing their data and they're Canadian citizens, you are subject to Canadian law as well.
Okay. Okay. So that makes sense. Right. Okay. Thank you. Yes. More experts in the field than I am, which is fine. I'm going to see. Oh, I got a few more minutes. I'm just going to flip through this. I just kind of use this as an example. Language models. I was just kind of using it as an example because when we are using ChatGPT or you're using some other AI, they always tout or they talk about using their language LLMs. And I just kind of wanted to show you that the differences in here. And here's a bunch of the open source ones that a lot of times with researchers we'll download some of the stuff and we'll start experimenting with different things. There's Hugging Face, there's Google, there's OpenAI, GPT, there's NVIDIA, who's been big in that, and there's different GitHub repositories that we look out over there. I kind of wanted to point out this, is that when you go on to Hugging Face models, and I'm just using it, I'm not touting Hugging Face or anything like that, but I was just using this as an example. On the left-hand side, you'll see all these different types of LLMs or different types of different things for different reasons and that. And these are the different major categories. I kind of identified the major categories that they say that they were using it. So if you are doing something with an AI application and you're trying to do something like that, then there's a possibility that you're going to have different possibilities on that. And here's just kind of a summary of what I've been talking about. I'll just kind of end it. And there's my contact information, but that's it. Thank you. Thank you. Are there any more questions? Okay, good. Yes, sir.
Doctor, I have a silly question. Your math teacher, did you say your dad asked you what 2 quarts plus 2 pints were? Was your answer 34?
No. Did I convert it or? Yeah, yes, sir.
So I know you're vice president of InfraGard.
Mhm.
What exactly does InfraGard do?
We are a non-for-profit organization that partners with FBI, and we are dedicated to infrastructure, security, and of 16 different sectors like finance, education, communication, transportation, those kind of things. And we partner with industry and FBI, and we try to get communication going back and forth and sharing information about the latest news that are going through. And like one of our communications, we had a CEO from a hospital. He was talking about a ransomware incident and kind of describing some of the pluses and minuses that happened to him on there. So they were sharing information. We had CISA there and FBI, and they were sharing their information as to how they would handle some of that stuff. So it kind of helps the whole state of Indiana to kind of get a better idea how to handle security when, or cybersecurity incidents when they do happen, or be alerted to, you know. So like for us, we look at educational instances, and maybe there's a trend for education, and we'll take a look at that. Or when the Move It kind of scenario came about, we took a closer look at that. So, and then kind of talked to our FBI counterparts and some of our other counterparts that we know that are in the InfraGard that have to deal with the same thing. So, because it wasn't only education that got hit by that. So yeah, that's kind of the nutshell, my 30-second deal with that. But yeah, we look for new partners, new involvement and that kind of stuff. With that, we trying to promote cybersecurity for Indiana and help each other out, or gives you some kind of networking with other industry workers that, you know, are in the same field, and maybe you can kind of talk amongst yourselves. You don't need us to do that, but we can be a sounding board or an instrument to kind of pull everybody together so you can get some news for that. Okay?
Awesome.
All right. Thank you.
See you, Doctor.
Thank you.